With the fall of the old Armenian prince Ptolemaeus, his puppet kingdom was absorbed into free Armenia, completing the liberation of the roughly defined nation from its overlords. Artaxias then ensured that his allies in the coalition against the Seleucids captured the province of Osrhoene, splitting him from his old masters for good. Now he needed to do the same thing in the land of the Medes, but his mind was elsewhere. There you are. What took so long? There's a whole backlog of messages. Was held up by a poxed camel, they say. Gave them something worse than the pox to think about for a bit. Best get going then. Yes, from the top. A letter from our old friend Antiochus, asking us to cool off the dogs in exchange for a bit of the old shiny. No. Next. We've got 2 offers of marriage. But don't get your hopes up, it's for Princess Artavastes. We've got Eudoxus of Colchis first. Smart man, but he must be getting on for 4 times her age. And Zari of Nabate. Our Nabate? Oh yes, a teenager if I recall correctly, so that's a little closer to the mark. But I do believe he has an aversion to anything Greek and goes positively feral over anything Persian. Not going to like the family get-togethers, I think. No, forget it. There's no one worthy of my daughter on this side of the earth, it seems. Never know, might be something good in this last one. Oh dear. A 70-year-old half-man, half-horse with 3 levies and a vegetable patch? No. It says Machares has passed. What? Of what? No foul play, so they say. He was always older on the inside than his years would suggest. Well, better all this news stay backed up. My apologies. Any ideas for who I should send to the army? Yes, actually. Heard Eulides fled Seleucia and set up shop as a tutor, working with one of the merchant houses west of Van. Must be a few of them who know their stuff, if the old master still knows how to pick his battles. Go find one with a bit of youth on his side. Youth, my lord? Need some young blood in the court. Can't be just me and you forever, old boy. Welcome back to Wings of Eden. Our second army over in the west has had a change of leadership. Machares is suddenly gone. We've got a new guy, Esarhaddon. He's quite good because he has a military tutor, which makes him very likely to gain positive military traits and turn him into a good general. As for what he's going to do, we'll just wait around in the western area of our territory. We can see the Seleucids have an army near Antioquia, so we'll want to defend in case they're up to anything. Meanwhile, we're continuing our offensive across Media Atropatene. Ecbatana just recently fell in an easy auto-resolve, and now Artaxias is going to try and complete the set by making this attack right here himself, hoping to get a liberation option, and if we don't, then we'll just sack the place and try and get Media Atropatene to attack it. Going to be a while before we have the siege equipment to do anything there. Now, an important diplomatic development, we finally get that military alliance with Iberia. Had to pay for it, but that's okay. That means we now technically control the Caucasus according to the rules in the victory conditions. So we've got Armenia, the Caucasus, and Osrhoene, and we'll get Media Atropatene soon if all goes to plan. Here in the next turn you can see my allies are moving out to the southeast, going after the Seleucids, not in a way that particularly benefits our victory conditions, but going after the Seleucids is good all the same. The Seleucid army we saw to the west seems to have disappeared. I could just hang around and defend the river crossing into our territory, but I thought with Esarhaddon we're going to try and make a name for this guy. We're going to go on the offensive at Antioquia since it has symbolic value to the enemy faction leader Antiochus. Even though it may be quite difficult, we'll just start a siege and see what they do. What they do is make their army reappear. So clearly that's not an ideal situation. We'll be retreating from this battle, but that won't be the end of our project to attack Antioquia. I'll keep looking for an opening, or at least keep the enemy on the defensive by constantly attempting to attack it. We join a war with the Bosporan Kingdom, the Greeks across the Black Sea. Hopefully nothing will come of that like our other northern wars. Now here we are in the next turn. The Seleucids have put their army into ships in the ports of Antioquia. Perhaps they're planning on going somewhere. It would help us out if they did, but we're going to perhaps cause them to stay by laying siege to the city. The prospects aren't ideal, but we're just trying something. We'll make siege equipment and literally just see what happens. It doesn't necessarily matter if we can't take it. We're just trying to prove something there with Esarhaddon. Now back over to Artaxias. I've got some siege equipment together. I wasn't planning on attacking right now. I was just checking what things we had. But when I looked, I saw that we've got a surprise visitor. It's Antiochus himself, the leader of the Seleucids. They must have assigned him as a governor in this province, so he's now defending with the garrison. That means this is a chance to take down their faction leader. While we could just wait and starve them out since they're now out of supplies, we want to do this the flashy way, so we'll attempt a settlement assault with what we have. I'm going to focus on attacking from the southeast, so attacking the east and southern walls basically, and the enemy mostly defended the eastern gate right here. They've got a few decent units up here like Hypaspists who could be very dangerous. As the battle starts, I'm going to be doing a little test. I want to use my ballistas to destroy the enemy towers around the gate, but for whatever reason their range wasn't showing up, so I had to test their range by moving a ram forwards to see when they'd start shooting at it. Once I roughly knew where I could put the ballistas safely, I moved a bit closer and started firing at the towers. These ballista are super inaccurate, they all miss with their first volley, so yes, this is going to take a while. We don't have great potential to actually damage things with these ballistas. While that's happening though, we have siege towers and a ladder approaching the southern wall, and because the enemy are all locked down at the eastern gate, nothing challenged our entry to the city, so all those units will be able to set up and start moving around the western side of the city without actually drawing any enemy attention at all. We finally destroy the first of the two towers, killing some of the Hypaspists in the process, which is good news. Now we'll just have to keep waiting, switch target onto the second one. But while that's happening, I had another ram approaching the northwestern gate to the city, and these skirmishers have now successfully broken in. I've got my second unit of Royal Cataphracts over here as well, so they'll come in to support. And those skirmishers proved to be pretty useful for a reason that you wouldn't expect. Here's the second gatehouse tower over at the east gate. It suddenly explodes, killing loads of the Hypaspists, which is great since we're going to struggle to kill them conventionally. But it didn't explode due to being hit by anything. It blew up because these skirmishers captured this other gate. It seems the capture point on this map and at this gate is linked to the other towers, and the towers here just don't fire at all. Just like many of the towers on the map actually, they're just fake. Something seems to be wrong since this is the beta version of the mod after all. So, a glitch in our favour. Well now, hardly needs me at all, does it? How about something like, the king pointed out at the enemy walls and announced to the heavens, "By Ahura Mazda, let any tower that might keep me from the oppressor of the Armenian people crumble in shame." With that the gates swung open and the tower walls buckled. Great stones were cast down upon the Macedonian soldiers who had allied themselves with the tyrant. Those who survived were trapped up on the gatehouse, left fearing equally the arrows of Armenia before them and the malice of Antiochus should they flee along the top of the wall. I'll work on it. I know I've been writing it up a little, but really seems like nothing will keep Artaxias from the throat of the Seleucid today. I mean, why did that tower collapse? Ahura Mazda's got a hand in here somewhere. Right, you, hold on to all these. The king wants me on the very front to see the truth of what happens in there. As if I haven't got my own ideas. While the main attack carries on, I brought those cataphracts who came in from the northwest to start shooting arrows towards the victory point, where Antiochus and his Agama cavalry are sitting around. They don't react to this attack, so we'll just expend some ammo and do a bit of damage. Not going to do very much damage, but might achieve something over time. I've also slowly been sneaking up with the levies who've now captured the western part of the city, and generally have had no resistance at all because most of the towers, or all of the towers over there, are non-functioning for whatever reason. Meanwhile, up on the wall, the enemy have taken huge casualties to our massive arrow bombardment, and most notably we've almost cleared out the area behind the gate, which will be very useful. The men on the walls get a bit of cover, so they're dying a bit more slowly, but still, as long as we don't actually attack those walls, doesn't necessarily matter that they're up there. I moved my skirmishers in the northwest to attack Antiochus, and he reacted by running off to finally attack the levies that I have wandering around in the area. I say attack, he did a very bad charge where one guy made contact with our line. This is great because his unit is a shock cavalry unit and they've just wasted their main strength. Now they'll have a nice sloggy fight against our wall of shields. We've got our skirmishers now actually attacking them from behind, probably hitting our own men a little bit because they're not very accurate. What I really wanted to do here is get my cataphracts to do a nice big charge into the back of the Agama. It didn't work quite as well as I thought it would because I accidentally ran them through some of my own men, so a lot of the cataphracts were delayed and slowed down, but still it has the desired effect. We surround the enemy, half of them are dead. That looks like it's going to be bad news for Antiochus. At the same time, the infantry are going to go and capture the victory point, so no matter what happens, we now have a chance of winning by default. Over here on the wall, things are just getting better and better for us. The enemy still have the wall heavily garrisoned, but there's now nothing behind the gates. That means we can run through, by virtue of the fact that capturing the northwest gatehouse made us capture this gatehouse for some reason. So the gates will open for us, and Artaxias and his cavalry just rush into the city completely unopposed. Those guys up there on the walls are just helpless and useless to the enemy. So Artaxias runs through and makes it up to Antiochus. He's still alive, and I wanted to leave him for Artaxias to face down. He's got one guard somewhere, but didn't see where he was. The battle now begins, and that battle is going to last a while because Antiochus is a high-level general. He's really hard to kill in melee. Got a few enemy units to finish off elsewhere. Here I threw some skirmishers up onto the wall using some spare ladders and started throwing javelins down at the enemy's last full-strength unit, this load of archers. They don't seem quite sure what to do about this whole situation, but they've routed, and I suppose that's what matters. Now I'm going to rush my horse archers into the city as well, and just generally take the city without ever facing the enemy's main force on the wall. There's not much left of that main force, to be fair, because they're starting to rout now as the enemy's army losses grow too large to bear. All that remains then is to kill Antiochus, which, as I said, is going to take us a while. Antiochus, old friend, why not lay down your arms and face your destiny like a man? You will be made into the plaything of the gods, Artaxias. I gave you everything you had. I gave you your family. Oh no, I was always an Orontid. Just didn't realize it yet. I suppose I should thank you for believing in me. You bet on the right horse. Look how far I've come. Your league will turn against you just as you have turned against me. You think the trust I placed in you is any different to that you give the Medes? The Medes would see us all dead. And thanks to you, it's a real possibility now. Everything's under control, Antiochus. I can see why you're stressed, really. As I said, I am grateful for everything you did for me. The things I learned and the friends I made in the academy really stuck with me for life. Taught me what happens to conquered peoples, and what always happens in turn to the conquerors. A lesson you were learning the hard way. Even all that stuff about managing sewer systems you made me learn. Could argue that's useful today as well. You will stop smiling when the fields go barren and the foreign horsemen come, and all the peoples think it is better for every man to be out for himself, thanks to you. There is nothing a dozen weak empires can do that a strong one cannot. You have doomed the future of all you meet, traitor. If there is to be doomed, then we're all happier to die for ourselves than you, old friend. I hope you don't take offense. Now, allow me to show you what the Academy taught me of swordsmanship. While we never actually did defeat Antiochus in the battle, he is luckily considered dead afterwards, so we have sorted that out. The city is captured, and for very low losses actually, thanks to the various exploits that went on. The bad news for all this is that this city doesn't have any options for liberation, so we're just going to have to sack it, take some money, and then hope our allies follow our war target and go and attack it. That's what that eagle above the city is meant to represent. So maybe someone else will take it soon. We're going to head back west. I took a look at the Seleucid Empire and saw that they've got another Antiochus, Antiochus IV, now leading them. They're still the number 2 ranked faction, despite their recent downfall. Their empire's been split in half, mostly by the actions of Nabatea, and I'm speaking both of my own Nabatea and the real one. A Nabatean empire is conquering up from the south, now bordering our little Nabatean state. Here, Galatia is the next state that we need to concern ourselves with, because they control the territory we need in Cappadocia to get our next and final, actually, victory region. The Seleucids offer peace and money. We're going to reject that because we still haven't quite finished taking their territory. And then, over with Esarhaddon, the fleet that was at Antioquia decides to sally out and attack. So we're being attacked from the sea, but also overland by the city garrison. Not an ideal battle, but this time it's reasonable, so let's fight it and see what Esarhaddon can do for us. The fight starts right away because the enemy's seaborne cavalry can be deployed on the map up front, so immediately our cav are fighting with theirs. It's a relatively even duel, but we get the better charge here as our cataphracts slam into the enemy's regular melee cav. That'll do some damage. Then our cataphracts just need to tank. They managed to draw the enemy's skirmishing cav, or some of them, into that melee, so now our own skirmishing cav will be pounding them from a distance. They've got some Agama up on the ridge there, who could come down and do some devastating damage with a charge, but luckily they're not doing that, so that's great for us. We managed to win this melee. We push back the enemy's melee cav, although they then come back from routing just after we finish off the horse archers, so this little fight does continue, still running the risk that the Agama will just come and attack us. There's that classic dead cavalryman glitch that we like to see. There's another big glitch coming up in this battle, so look out for that. Now the Agama do start to deploy. They're not being very fast about it, which is great since it's allowing us to shoot them from a distance. Eventually they decide to go for it just as Esarhaddon wins his melee, so not the best timing, and they also don't do the best targeting. They're actually going to follow the skirmish cav into an attack against my skirmish cav. While obviously the Agama could overpower my men, for whatever reason this doesn't go very well for them. They get a slightly botched charge, doesn't seem to get many kills, and now they're stuck with an exposed rear, and we've got some free cataphracts to use. So we quickly make a flank attack and surround the enemy general. Now his men won't do especially well in the melee because they are shock cav with relatively low melee stats for a unit of their class, and we're just going to outnumber them and generally blob all over them to reduce their morale. Once that happens, they rout, and that's going to be the end of their elite cavalry unit. Hopefully we can get the enemy general as well. The rest of his army is still trying to set up for a landing. The AI does take a very long time to land, so there is going to be a long delay, but the garrison from the city is now arriving, so I do have to clear out before I finish off the enemy general. The general himself actually survives here as one of the last couple of guys from his unit, so he'll get away. Had to run because the enemy archers were starting to shoot and the enemy are about to spam us with spears. Now that that's done, we need to consider the actual battle. I've got an army up on this hill, on the southern area of the map, but right now they're actually walking away, in slow motion in some cases. What I was thinking is that once the Seleucid army gets off the ships, we'll be in big trouble, especially if they combine forces with the garrison army, because their ground army is a lot more powerful than ours. Right now they're experiencing some classic Rome 2 glitches as they ram their men into these rocks. That's going to be an issue, but eventually they will actually work out how to get everyone off the ships and put people on shore. And I don't want to wait around to see how these super heavily armed swordsmen absolutely annihilate my tier 1 levy spears. So, all that said, I set up ready to withdraw. I deployed myself on the edge of the map, thinking, let's just go, we've already done some damage, we'll see if we can start a new battle after this. However, because the garrison army didn't wait for the navy to finish landing, they came over to attack my force. I thought, wait a minute, there's still some battle for us to win here, so I redeployed to begin a quick battle with the few advancing units who have made it, and then we'll see where we can take it from there. They didn't factor the tides in. That's why they can't land properly. Precisely, young master. But shall their folly be our boon? Let me think. It'll take another few hours for them to land like that. If we run the men up, we could meet them on the beach in time, maybe. But it's all flat and straight. The rocks would protect their right flank, and we'd be in danger of cutting off our own retreat if we focus on the left. Do you think we can do it? I know what I think, but I want to know what you think. I think we keep the men behind the ridge. Let their forces land and see the bodies of their royal cavalry, then wear themselves down, crossing the ridgeline in their armor. That way we keep the option of retreat open, and there's a chance the enemy will be in disorder and poor spirits by the time we can attack them. That's what I think. Interesting. I see the merit in it. So, what do you think we should do, sir? I have absolutely no idea. Let's go with your plan, shall we? Yes, sir. We had an okay time fighting their garrison units, mostly by virtue of the fact that the enemy were only attacking 1 or 2 units at a time, meaning our whole army could be used against them, and I could do things like this, just surround their elite hypaspists and bombard them with javelins, killing loads of them. They weren't killing us very well either, because they would have been tired when the fight started, and our fresh spears and even fresh archers in melee will do okay holding them off. So yes, things go well. We continue to hold our ground. Meanwhile, the enemy army is gradually landing itself. They're starting to put something together over on the other side of the map. I had been skirmishing against them with my horse archers, but we're starting to run out of ammo, and we have gradually been taking losses since many of their units can throw javelins. I ended up running the horse archers across the entire map, trying to take down pikemen and actually not really achieving anything. But I suppose it did achieve something, technically, because now we're 35 minutes later, the battle's still going, everyone's just gone back to sit in the corner, and the enemy are finally getting to the point where they're attacking us. It took them an incredibly long time to cross the map, and we'll see why in a second. Right now it's just some archers engaging our massive archer line, so we'll leave that going. That looks good. You can see enemies are still over by the ships, and they're not even walking in the right direction. This is, I think, because some of the enemy units were on more than one ship, and they haven't all landed. So say here, these units are technically on land, but many of the men in the units are still on their own ships because they were split across multiple vessels, and this has just paralyzed the AI. I don't think this works very well. The enemy kept moving their units back towards the ships, I guess trying to move their men towards the average position of their units or something, meaning that as they attacked us, they were in a huge disorganized column. They were all tired since they've been running backwards and forwards all day, and this actually has an interesting effect. In Attila, being tired reduces your armor stat, which makes you more vulnerable to ranged attacks, melee attacks as well, but it means that tired men don't just get worse at actual hand-to-hand fighting, they actually get more likely to die when they're hit by things just because they're tired. So, we're able to kill units like these hypaspists, who are heavily armored, just using our low-quality archers, and that goes quite well. In fact, these hypaspists don't even make it into melee combat, they rout due to the losses they take before they arrive. That's great news. The other thing to consider right now is that because the enemy spent half an hour walking over to us, and there had already been quite a long time before they even landed, right now we're at the very end of the battle timer and we're defending, so we're on the verge of winning by default. All we need to do is survive, although that said, if we don't actually kill any enemies, then surviving will have no practical effect. After a while, some enemy units did get together and attack our line here in the corner, but they're still too isolated. I could make this rear attack against these pikes to destroy them before they did too much damage. I noticed that when the camera zoomed out, it looks like my men have Greek-style Furos shields, and then when you zoom in, they go back to having wicker ones. Not sure if they're planning some sort of secret equipment downgrade, where it looks like they're bad, but they've got better shields hidden behind their real ones. Could be cunning. And now, after a short melee, the battle suddenly ends, just as the enemy were getting into things, because as I said, the timer ran out. This isn't actually the best thing ever, because while it gives us a heroic victory, it means we never really decided the conflict, and I think if the battle had gone on longer, we would have done more damage to the enemy. They were in a weak position. So I probably should have charged forwards and actually tried to attack them, perhaps from the top of the ridgeline. Still, it does mean our siege will continue. We'll continue having Antioquia under threat, and the Seleucids have been humiliated as they failed to break through our very low quality army. It's a level up for Esarhaddon, and more hopes for him that he might actually achieve something doing this really cheeky raid. So thank you very much for watching this episode. A special thanks goes out to the Officially Devon patrons for making this video and this channel possible. Esarhaddon's going to attempt another cheeky move against the Seleucids, and Antiochus' prediction will come true as our own vassals and allies cause trouble for us in the next part of Wings of Eden.